Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we'll be doing more Martin Luther King Jr.'s A Testament of Hope. The part we're going to read today is called A Gift of Love. It's a short one, thank goodness. Let's get into this. A Gift of Love. This anecdotal piece accents the role of love in the Black Freedom Movement and was part of a Christmas series on that theme. This Christmas, I remember the little black children of Grenada, Mississippi, beaten by grown men as they walked to school. I remember baby attacked by rats in a Chicago slum. I remember a young Negro murdered by a gang in Cicero, Illinois, where he was looking for a job, and a white minister in Georgia forced out of his sacred office because he spoke for human dignity. I remember, too, farm workers in Mississippi risking their lives and their livelihood to march out of the cotton fields and vote for freedom and democracy. This I remember, especially in this season of giving, for these people have followed the example and spirit of Christ himself. They have given mankind a priceless gift of love. This I remember, especially in this season of giving, for these people have followed the example and spirit of Christ himself. I'm rereading that paragraph. I am thinking now of some teenage boys in Chicago. They have nicknames like Tex and Pueblo and Goat and Teddy. They hail from the Negro slums, forsaken by society. They once proudly fought and lived for street gangs like the Vice Lords, the Roman Saints, the Rangers. But this year they gave us all the gift of nonviolence, which is indeed a gift of love. I met these boys and heard their stories in discussions we had on some long, cold nights last winter at the slum apartments I rent in the West Side ghetto of Chicago. I was shocked at the venom they poured out against the world. At times I shared their despair and felt a hopelessness that these young Americans could ever embrace the concept of nonviolence as the effective and powerful instrument of social reform. All their lives, boys like these have known life as a madhouse of violence and degradation. Some have never experienced a meaningful family life. Some have police records. Some dropped out of the incredibly bad slum schools, then were deprived of honorable work, then took to the streets. To the young victim of the slums, this society has so limited the alternatives of his life that the expression of his manhood is reduced to the ability to defend himself physically. No wonder it appears logical to him to strike out, resorting to violence against oppression. That is the only way he thinks he can get recognition. And so, we have seen occasional rioting, and much more frequently and consistently, brutal acts and crimes by Negroes against Negroes. In many a week in Chicago, as many or more Negro youngsters have been killed in gang fights as were killed in the riots there last summer. The freedom movement has tried to bring a message to boys like Tex. First, we explained that violence can be put down by armed might and police work, that physical force can never solve the underlying social problems. Second, we promised them we could prove by example that nonviolence works. The young slum dweller has good reason to be suspicious of promises, but these young people in Chicago agreed last winter to give nonviolence a test. Then came the very long, very tense, hot summer of 1966, and the first test for many Chicago youngsters, the Freedom March through Mississippi. Gang members went there in carloads. Those of us who have been in the movement for years were apprehensive about the behavior of the boys. Before the march ended, they were to be attacked by tear gas. They were to be called upon to protect women and children on the march with no other weapon than their own bodies. To them, it would be a strange and possibly nonsensical way to respond to violence. But they reacted splendidly. They learned in Mississippi and returned to teach in Chicago the beautiful lesson of acting against evil by renouncing force. And in Chicago, the test was sterner. These marchers endured not only the filthiest kind of verbal abuse, but also barrages of rocks and sticks and eggs and cherry bombs. They did not reply in words or violent deeds. Once again, their only weapon was their bodies. I saw boys like Goat leap into the air to catch with their bare hands the bricks and bottles that were sailed toward us. It was through the Chicago marches that our promises to them that nonviolence achieves results was redeemed, and their hopes for a better life were rekindled. For they saw in Chicago that a humane police force, in contrast to police in Mississippi, could defend the exercise of constitutional rights as well as enforce the law in the ghetto. They saw in prosperous white American communities that hatred and bigotry could and should be confronted, exposed, and dealt with. They saw in the very heart of a great city that men of power could be made to listen to the tramp of marching feet and the call for freedom and justice, and use their power to work for a truly open city for all. Boys like Teddy, a child of the slums, saw all this because they decided to rise above the cruelties of those slums and to work and march peacefully for human dignity. They revitalized my own faith in nonviolence, and these poverty-stricken boys enriched us all with the gift of love. And that was in issue 94 of McCall's. So yeah, in this, Dr. King's just talking about how asking these gang members in Chicago to march with him and in a show of nonviolence, of love, of peace, of just, you know, not confronting everything with hate and anger and violence, but love, protection. And he's very, very pleasantly surprised by the outcome. And yeah, that's pretty much the majority of what he talks about. That'll be it for now. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. But I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.